Good morning, everyone. It's Mr. Pierce. Today we're going to work on fractions, decimals, and percents. If you remember on Friday, we learned how to turn a fraction to a decimal. So we're going to continue with that today. In the first one, we see 5/9. So what that means is 5/9 could be 5 divided by 9. That's how we would change it to a decimal. So if I do that, that would mean 9 is my divisor. So that's going to go in the front. And 5 would be my dividend, so it would go in here like so. Now, can I divide 5 by 9? No. So if I change it to tenths by adding a decimal and a 0, I now have 50 tenths. I'm going to bring that decimal straight up. 9 divides into 50 tenths. What I'm thinking is, if I have 50 tenths and I want to divide it into 9 groups, what's the largest amount of tenths I could have in each group? And of course, that would be 5, because 5 times 9 is 45. So I would write that underneath and subtract. When I do that, I, of course, get 5. It did not come out evenly, so I'm now going to add a second 0. Okay, now I can bring that down and divide again. Now I have 50 hundredths. If I have 50 hundredths and I want to divide it into 9 groups, there would be 5 hundredths in each group. 5 times 9 is 45. Of course, we would get 5. And now I have a decision to make. Okay, and that decision is simple. I'm only going to add one more 0. So as a rule, for what we do in 5th grade, we are never going to add more than 3 zeros after the decimal. So if I go ahead and add that third 0, I can now bring that down. And I divide again. Now I have 50 thousandths. I'm dividing it by 9. There would be 5 thousandths in each group, which of course would be 45. You will notice that this did not come out evenly. In fact, it will never come out evenly. This number would go on and on and on and on. Our answer would be 0.5555555 until we either got sick of writing 5s, or if we were doing it on a calculator, the calculator runs out of room. So when we get to this point, we want to take and we want to round this number to the hundredths place. And the reason we're doing that is because we're also linking this to a percent. So this 5 right here is in the hundredths place. So I'm going to look at the 5 that's in the thousands. I'm going to ask myself a simple question. Is the 5 that's in the thousands place 5 or above? If I answer yes to that question, I'm going to add 1 to the 5 that is in the hundredths place. The answer was yes, it is 5 or above. If I add 1 to the number in the hundredths place, I get 0.56. So as a decimal, this is 0.56. And as a percent, that would mean it is 56%. Let's do another example. I see 1/6. Okay? 1/6, if I want to change it to a decimal, what I would do is I would divide, make 6 my divisor and 1 my dividend. As it's written, I cannot divide. Okay, 6 does not divide into 1. But if I add a decimal and a 0, and now it says 10 tenths, now I can divide. I'm going to bring that decimal straight up. 6 doesn't divide into 1, so I'm going to put a 0 there. Now 6 divides into 10, okay, one time. 1 times 6, of course, is 6. I write it underneath and subtract. I get 4. It did not come out evenly. So I'm going to add a second 0, okay? So I can bring that 0 down, and now I have 40 hundredths. If I have 40 hundredths and I want to divide it into 6 groups, the largest amount I can have in each of those groups would be 6 hundredths. So I'm going to put the 6 here. 6 times 6 is 36. I subtract, I get 4. I am then going to add a third 0. Again, as a rule, we're never going to add more than 3 zeros. So now I'm going to bring that 0 down. How many times is 6 divided into 40? Well, that would be 6 times. Okay, once again, 6 times 6 is 36. I subtract, I get 4. I'm not going to add any more zeros. At this point, I'm going to stop, and I'm going to round this to the hundredths place. So if you remember, the 0 is in the ones, the 1 is in the tenths, the 6 is in the hundredths place. So I'm going to underline that, and I'm going to circle the 6 that follows that. I ask myself, is the 6 that I circled 5 or above? The answer is, of course, yes. So the 6 that's in the hundredths, I am going to add 1 to it. So my answer is going to become 0.17. So that's going to be my decimal, and my percent would be 17%. So let's put it in perspective. You are a basketball player. You go to the foul line and you shoot 6 foul shots and you make 1 of the 6. You then made 17% of your foul shots. Let's do a third example. Here we see the fraction 3/4. Okay, 3/4 can be changed to a decimal by making 4 your divisor and 3 your dividend. Okay, now, can I divide 4 into 3? Of course not. So by now we should know we are going to add a decimal and a 0 and change it to 30/10. I cannot divide the 4 into the 3, so I'm going to put a 0 here. If I have 30/10 and I want to put it into 4 groups, the largest amount I could have in each group would be 7/10. 7 times 4 is 28. When I subtract, I get 2. It did not come out evenly, so I'm going to add a second 0. Now I can bring that 0 down. Okay, if I have 20 hundredths and I want to divide it into 4 groups, I can put 5 hundredths in each group. 4 times 5, of course, is 20. So when I subtract, I get 0. You will notice I do not have to add a third 0. It came out to be 0.75. So as a decimal, our answer is 0.75, and that is 75%. So if you are playing kickball and you get up to kick 4 times, you get on base 3 out of those 4 times, you got on base 75% of the time. Let's quickly go right on to the next problem. We have the fraction 9/12. If we want to change that to a decimal, 12 becomes our divisor and 9 becomes our dividend. Now, does 12 divide into 9? Of course not. But if I add a decimal and a 0, now I can say that that is 90/10. 12 does not divide into 9, so I'll put a 0 there. 12 divides into 90. Seems like I practice my 12s. I know that that would be 7. 7 times 12 is 84. When I subtract, I end up getting 6. Now, it did not come out evenly, so I am going to add another 0. Now I can bring it down and divide again. Does 12 divide into 60? Yes, it does. It goes 5 times. 5 times 12 is 60. It goes evenly. So I know my answer, 9/12, is equal to 0.75 or 75%. You might have been able to predict that because in the previous problem I did, we had the fraction 3/4. And it just so happens that 3/4 and 9/12 are equivalent. So you'll notice they both equal 75%. In the final example I'm going to do, we have the fraction 6/7. Again, we can change this to a decimal by writing the 7 as our divisor and the 6 as our dividend. Okay, does 7 divide into 6? No, it does not. But if I add a decimal and a 0 and change it to 60/10, now I can divide. 7 didn't divide into 6, but 7 will divide into 60/10. How many tenths could I fit into the groups of 7? Or into the 7 groups? I could put 8 tenths in each group. 8 times 7 is 56. I subtract, I get 4. It did not come out evenly, so I'm going to add a second 0 and bring it down. Does 7 divide into 40 hundredths? Yes, it does. There would be 5 hundredths in each of those 7 groups, which would be 5 times 7 is 35. If I subtract, I get 5. It did not come out evenly, so I'm going to add another 0 and bring it down. I'm not going to add any more than 3 zeros. Okay, if I have 50 thousandths, and I'm trying to break it up into 7 groups, the largest amount of thousandths I could have in each group would be 7 thousandths in each group. 7 thousandths times 7 would be 49. Okay, it would be 49 thousandths. Okay, so if I subtract, I get 1. As you can see, this did not come out evenly. Okay, but at this point, I can go ahead and round it to the hundredths place. So, the 5 is in the hundredths. I'm going to look at the 7 that follows it, and I'm going to ask myself that question, the basic question. Okay, is 7 5 or above? The answer is, of course, yes. So I'm going to add 1 to the 5, which would make this 0.86. So if our answer here is 0.86, that is 86%. Okay? So if you had a quiz or a test and there were 7 questions on it and you got 6 correct, that is why you get an 86 for a grade.